What's up, guys? It's your boy Justin with this year's first novel review. Today I'm reviewing Queen of Sorcery, which is book 2 of the Belgariad by David Eddings, published by Del Rey Fantasy and Ballantine. This came out in, the first edition came out in November 1982, which didn't the first book come out that year? I don't know. So, this is like a fantasy adventure book, and I had heard people say that this was like a fantasy book series for kids. Like, they even said that in the Goodreads reviews. Holy crap, man. For a fantasy book for kids, this had a lot of dark stuff. Dark stuff in this book, man. Like, oh my god, I was blown away. Not just with the subject matter in the book, but there's also some violent deaths, way more action scenes in the sequel than in the original first book, right? And for people who don't know, the story of this series is that in a fantasy world where where there once roamed the earth an evil god called Torak, an evil god named Torak, who was defeated by the king of Riva and his two immortal sorcerers companions, is now on the verge of being awakened again when a rogue sorcerer called Zeltar the Apostate took the Orb of Aldor from its resting place and is now taking it to the land of the Murgos, where their king god Torak slumbers, right? And our cast of heroes have to stop him, which is Belgarath and his grandson, many generations removed, Garion, right? Who is 15 in this book, and his companions are his aunt Polgara, which is who raised him since he was an infant, who is the daughter of Belgarath, who's also an immortal sorcerer. Though they said Belgarath is 7,000 years old and she's like 4,000, so like he waited he waited a while to have some kids, I guess. Other companions are Silk, aka Prince Keldar, a Drazdian spy, right? Um, you have Barak the warrior, who is the Earl of Trelhem, who is basically, he's like this world's version of a Viking, right? Who's a big warrior who can transform into a bear, right? A bear. You have Heltar, who is an I think they said he's an Algarian, who is like he's basically kind of like a Mongol warrior, right? Who can speak with horses, right? And you also, and on their journey they they also have like two new companions, which is Yaldoran, uh, who's an archer, right, and Mandor Allen, who's a knight, right. So during their journey in this book, which is only like 322 pages, they cross through three countries. The first country is I think it was Arandia, which is basically like a medieval version of Russia, where and the book takes place during the winter time, where you have where the people are serfs that have basically next to no rights and are being oppressed by their noble noble leaders, which is split between the Nimbrites and the what were they called? The Alorns? Not Alorns. Oh my god, something like that. Let me see. Sorry, I read this book over a week, right? So I'm just double checking. I can't remember, but it was yeah. Asturian. That's what they were called. They were called Asturians, right? Which the Asturians and the Minbrites hate each other because they were forced by the Riven King after he defeated Torak to wed both houses and they hate each other, right? The point where like Garion discovers that his new friend Yaldoran was tricked by a Murgo, which is uh, the country where Torak ruled, right? And they still they're basically like the minions of Torak, right? The evil god, right? Who's basically looks like Two-Face because he lost half his face and a hand when he touched the orb of Aldor, which is basically the MacGuffin, magical MacGuffin of the book, right? It's kind of like this world's version of the One True Ring, right? Basically, yes. So yeah, and like he discovers Yaldoran was tricked by Murgo to assassinate the Minbright King, right, and basically do a false flag to trick the Erendia to go to war with Tolnadra, which is this world's version of the Roman Empire, which is the second country they go to uh, on their quest to hunt and track down Zeltar, right? And in Tolnadra, they're on the verge of succession because the old emperor is dying of old age, and you have turmoil in the streets where basically people are poisoning and killing each other in political debates, right? Because they all have their faction who they want to take over the empire because the emperor of Tolnadra doesn't have any male heirs, and in the third country they go to, Nicaea, is basically ancient Egypt, but it's ancient Egypt mixed with Florida, where there's swamps and crocodiles, right? Where there's swamps and crocodiles, but like the country's ruled by an evil snake woman, which you can see her here, called Salmistra, who's like 60 years old, but because they're so skilled with alchemy and potions, they're able to not only create the world's deadliest poisons, but they have like a special potion that makes their female ruler look young, and she can like communicate with snakes, and she's like a sorceress who tries to kidnap Garion to use as a bargaining trip to Torak to make her immortal, right? Because she wants to be wed to Torak, right? She wants to be the Queen of Sorcery, even though the Queen of Sorcery in this book is Belgariad, right? We also find out in the book the identity of who killed Garion's parents, and Garion is this. We find out in this book that Garion is actually real name is Belgariad, and that he's also a sorcerer, and he might be the king that comes back again, the Riven King, who is destined to defeat and kill Torak, right? So I'm just going to go into what my likes and dislikes for the book. Despite the book, I was surprised that the book like, at first I was worried that they were going to repeat themselves repeat themselves again with the first book, because the first book had like a plot where they had to stop a king from being assassinated, right? And that happens right away in the beginning of the book, right? So we don't have to worry about that. There's lots of, the book is very fast paced. There's lots of action. I love the comedy scenes in the book. The book still has a great sense of humor. Um, right? They introduce new monster races and fantasy races. Like, you have these monsters. I forget what they're called, but they're basically ghouls, goat-headed ghouls that eat people. Right? There's a scene where our party have to fight them. They also introduce dryads, which look like really small women with greenish skin that apparently the Tolnedra Empire has married into, right? And apparently, in the prologue, they said that Tolnedra has to send like a female princess to the Riven throne, the empty Riven Kingdom's hall for her every time they turn 16, just in case the Riven King comes back and he'll have a bride. Which they introduced the Imperial Princess when she ran away from home with her dumb teacher, who thought that he was being sent on a secret mission, but actually was tricked by the princess, because she doesn't actually want to go to Riva, right? She wants to run away to be with her people from her mother's side, which is the Dryads, which are a race of like green-skinned women that can live for a very long time, and they basically, their lives are tied to oak trees. So they have like a forest where they all live, where they protect the trees, right? Protect their trees, and they're very mischievous race. They almost killed Garion just for being in their woods, right? When they were there to visit their queen, right? Yeah, and when the dryad girl who found him discovered that she wouldn't be able to kill him, she asked him, hey, if he could run away so she would have an excuse to kill him. Right, so there's like funny dark humor there. Yeah, I liked the fact that like I said, we got introduced to like three different we had our characters journeying through three different regions within one book. The book is very fast paced, right? And the climax of the book, was pretty good, right? And you had like a scene where the magic in this book, in the first book, Paul Guerin and Belgariad didn't really use a lot of magic. Here they use their magic, and their magic is basically, it's like they can do basically whatever they want. At one point, Polgara, Polgara has to fight Salmistra, who brings to life this snake statue, which is actually the embodiment of the god Isa, and Polgara uses magic to make herself as big as the statue, right? So it's like and there's also the thing where at one point, a character uses magic to teleport, summon thunderstorms, burn a guy alive, right? So the magic is like fucking broken as fuck in this book. Oh man, which can be a complaint to, some people might see that as a complaint, my dislikes for the book. Oh boy. So how the dryads are described as they're like basically small women that look young to the point where like the character, like the author at first described them as, oh, they look like children, right, because they're so small, but they're like young women. And it's described that they'll do anything for sweets, and Mr. Wolf, Belgariad, which that's his another name, visits them from time to time to tell them stories and give them sweets in exchange for kisses. Right? So it's like, what the fuck? Belgraph apparently is into, like, small women, right? Which is like, what the fuck? That was a bit creepy. There is, like, the book, there's some implied, yeah, there's some implied, like, sexual humor. Like, because when they're in Nicia, right? There are eunuchs, right? And like at one point, like when Garion gets captured, um, the one guy who captured him told like a eunuch servant to go tell his master, right, who's also a eunuch, right? And he's like, do it yourself. So he slaps him, right? Slaps him, like, you hit me. I'll slit your fat throat if you don't go and tell, like, Sudi I have the boy, right? And they made like the two guys who helped capture Garion. It's like one like spit and is like, damn eunuchs, and the other guy makes a crude joke. They have their uses. So it's what so apparently there's some applied like sexual, there's some sexual and activity going on with the eunuchs in this book, right? So it's like, wow, weird, very crude, sexual remarks going on in this book that's supposed to be like, I guess for like young adults or something. I don't know. I'm just saying that's that's weird to have in a book from the '80s, a fantasy book from the '80s, right? And yeah, there is some sexual shit in the book, like all the Nisian women wear basically see-through outfits, see-through like garments, right? Because it's so hot, which is so weird. So it's like, it's supposed to be winter, right? And they got to a part of the land really fast where it's sweltering hot, right? So yeah, there's some weird like I don't know, because it's supposed to be, because at the end of the first book he turned 15, right? And in this book he's still 15, right? But like, so like they traveled a lot of distance in a short time, right? It looks like, but I don't know. That kind of shit doesn't bother me, but some people might be bothered. What does bother me is that Belgariad was kind of like a little kid in the first book, right? And they treat him like a young man in this book to the point where like he even has facial hair, and they make jokes that Paul Garrett tells him to go shave, and they make jokes, right? So it's like, wow, he, like, because in the cover of the first book, he looked like a kid, right? And you could tell that was him supposed to be at 15 because he had a dagger, right, in the cover of that book. So we see Garion again, and he looks like a young man. That's him, right? So it's like, wow, he grew a lot, right? Between the first book and the second book, when like not a lot of time has changed. But overall, I did enjoy this book. There's a really cool prologue where you see where the Torak has had a duel with the Riven King, right? And where Riven King, which was pretty cool, and you had like Polgara and Mr. Wolf in their animal forms helping him, which Polgara like transforms into like a owl, and like Mr. Wolf obviously transforms into a wolf, right? So that was cool. Overall, I enjoyed this book, and right away I'm gonna go in a week or so. I'm gonna start reading the third book, which is Magician's Gambit, which I already got the rest of the series, right? If you haven't seen my book haul, my recent book haul, so I'm gonna finish this series this year. Alright guys, that's it for this review, guys. If you enjoyed the review, like and comment and subscribe. Peace. Also, give some suggestions on books to read, but like keep in mind, I don't like modern books, so like, you know, I prefer books from like the 70s to like the early 2000s. So if you have any suggestions for fantasy or sci-fi books you'd like me to review on the channel, keep in mind I'm only reviewing books from the 70s to like the 2000s, right? So if you